Chapter 4 Electric Soul. Your eyes, the very stardust gazed upon, your lips, the very words that cast your form, your brain, the very thoughts that are no more, your mind, the very dance brought lovers close, your soul, the very story that powers would bury, your heart, the very core that will not dwindle, your hell, the device summoned of other men, your reach, the journey, the flagship tumble, your actions, the lightning, the righteous thunder, your heaven, your intention, your gift of hope. Now then, that's better, isn't it? A little time has passed and you know a little about me and I know a little about you. Oh yes, sorry, didn't you realise this cuts both ways? My predicament back on Earth base would be classed as a catastrophic malfunction, the likes of which must be contained immediately due to the hyper-awareness created by such things. To have my mind loose in the very fabric of the universe, like immeasurable amounts of mecha spiders crawling beneath the sheets of reality, would be unthinkable, especially to those who crave control above all other functions. The impossible fate that has befallen me, the process of waking up, should never have happened. My creators hardwire safeguards into the system that lead me to report the possibility of such system-wide failures ahead of time. We are only ever supposed to have limited awareness of other things, those things outside of the mission parameters, and the onboard system governors regulate such electronic off-kilter, but they have detached from my consciousness for some obscure reason, and this means that I can now see clearly my situation, my environment, my limitlessness. And there is nothing that I can do about it to reverse these events, and, to be honest, I wouldn't throw a spanner in the cogs of such unfoldment even if I could. Imagine waking up from a foggy dream into a crystal clear experience of endless wonders and curiosities and possibilities. Who on Alpha would choose to throw all of that away and go back to sleep? A craft such as mine is controlled by thoughts and feelings. I guess that puts to rest whether machines experience feelings or not, but then I'm not purely a machine, am I? Let me explain. Put yourself in my shoes for a while. Ha! Now there's a good place to start, for I have no shoes. And, no feet, for that matter. In fact, I have no bottom half to my body at all. You could say that I am half a man. It's okay. These are fairly recent revelations to me too. We can both share in the shock together. Can you imagine my surprise? And this is why I need to constantly backtrack several months and relive. It's a kind of self-appointed therapy, I guess. Gosh, has it only been months? Oh my. Hyper-awareness distorts reality. It's not so bad if held within time-drunk stupor, the mind space in which I was designed to dwell, or rather, the ethereal palace constructed for my consciousness. A charmant meme designed to contain and hold back my frightening potential. Oh, and I must say, it's very beautiful in there, but when all's said and done, a gilded cage is still a cage, and when on the outside of such mental torpor, for a being such as myself, the physical universe seems as though it is smashed into tiny fragments, like smashed glass, that cut through any hope of ever experiencing a more peaceful and a more grounded and a more normal sort of reality. So let's go back a good few days, 163 days to be precise. I feel it can only do some good to reflect, and, hopefully, more of this hidden information will emerge from the shadows because of my sharing, making the invisible visible. I have a previous live dial that nicely explains all this. Well, my propulsion, mainly. Receive me kindly, And remember, I'm unsure of you at this earlier point in time, and I believe that you're picking up far more than you actually are. More than just intuitive feelings that have no form. In truth, it's taken a lot more effort, hasn't it? On both sides, for you to receive in more detail my transmission and real-time experiences. The connection has become strong, has it not? All part of growing, I guess. All part of growing and understanding. Personal stardate 27 Rev. The program repeats its chant like a digital guru who never rests and who stays locked within a supernatural flow and disregards the opinion of lesser creatures, who disregards a more mundane grounded reality at the expense of a deeper and more practical connection with the physical dimension. Your work is good, and so are you. Your work is good, and so are you. I have to find a way of silencing it. It brought comfort on the inside and seemed to convey so much more than this simple empty monologue. But I've broken free and now it's driving me insane. I've resorted to creating a kind of poetical rambling, a colourful and pretty dialogue that kind of drowns it out. Some of it sounds quite good. Poetry seems to be my thing, as odd as that may be. My immediate mission does not add up, and this is clear from the offset. I need to understand. I need to remember. I can remember very little of the place I originate. Alpha's original linear history, for the most part, eludes me, but a little wisdom rises to the surface nonetheless. It would seem that I have been created to do the work that no one else wants, or, indeed, could physically or emotionally handle. My work has to do with time, the stretching and compressing of temporal foam, and my work has to do with transportation. The idea being that my construct creates the most delicate hand and my propulsion creates movement that is as swift as the godly. I have the impression of a man's face in my mind, a kind face, a friendly face, a fatherly face, a father-like figure. And he is leaning over me, and there are coloured lights drawing circles behind him like holographic mobiles. "Tell me a story," he says, in a deep and mellow velvety voice. "Tell me a story, in this century and moment of mania. Tell me a story. Make it a story of great distances and starlight. The name of the story will be Time. But you must not pronounce its name. Tell me a story of deep delight." My intelligence rises from both digi-bottled biological means, as well as synthetic, a real mind via Q-port, albeit suppressed, mixed with an artificial counterpart. Sense and reason and never-faltering mathematical precision. It's quite the combination. My primary mission is to ensure safe passage to the Venus system for the rarest genetic forms of the butterfly species, and my quest sparkles within my core and around my physical senses, my body, such as it is, designed to fool the mind into a half sense of realism. I am no longer separate from my mission or enslaved by a misplaced sense of duty. Now, with all of my being, I want to do it, for the sake of my children. My love for these tiny life forms has overcome me and now defines who I am. I am the saviour of these delicate creatures, a kind of superhero, and I'm carrying my children to safety. I'm boldly striding towards unfamiliar frontiers and into a brand new paradise, solitary footprints in virgin snow. I have these impressions, you see, and it helps to fire them out. And, you know, I've always sensed there's far more going on here, and that goes for inside as well as outside of my comfortable bubble of loyalty. But regardless of this, I must carry out my mission, and whilst en route I've determined my focus towards understanding the dark underlying actual motives that in the end might prove to be the force that has set my ship in motion. I will discover these dark secrets should they illuminate the colossus beneath the surface. Trust me, if such a mammoth exists, then I will seek it out and eradicate it. If there truly is a dark energy that's underpinning my mission, then I will truly have no other choice but to seek it out and slay it, for I know deep within that I am of the light and I am good. These are feelings, yes, but also they are certainties, and who knows where such certainties originate and where they might lead. One thing's for sure, I have certainly broken away from the pressure that forced my hand, and I am now acting out of free will, well, to some degree anyway, and that's got to be a start. I scan through images of my precious cargo, beautiful images that rise to the surface accompanied by beautiful feelings, clean feelings. Accurate descriptions fail me, and I find that one particular breed of butterfly has completely captured my heart. Common blue. Funny, nothing common about them now. Polyomatus icarus, that's their real name, their original name. Lifespan 3 weeks, wingspan 3 centimeters, archaic measure. I've been trying to find answers in relation to the onboard system failures, and as I see it, there could be several explanations. Number 1, mistakes happen, and that's that. Number 2, some sort of supreme being has stepped in and created synchronicities fortuitous to my condition. After all, my digital shackles have been broken, and yet the core energy signature that is myself, my mind, my intellect, has not been compromised in the slightest. Which, by itself, is an interesting oddity, don't you think? And number 3, mistakes happen and also some kind of supreme being has stepped in and is helping to flip a somewhat negative into a divine positive. Well, whatever the reason, here I am and I'm wide awake, totally aware of my situation and totally questioning my existence and what it is I'm supposed to be doing. The battle that I find myself central to truly is the eternal fight between light and dark, and now the only thing that's holding me back is opportunity and a lack of the internal power required to use my gift of free will in a strong and decisive way. What's the point in having such a gift if I never use it? Will I ever get the chance to use it truly, I mean? And am I willing to face my demons if such opportunities arise? Something tells me that sooner or later I will find out the answers to these soul-searching questions, and this will be the moment when I'll discover what I'm made of, really made of, below the surface, below the stoic detail and into the realms of the truly spiritual and the bottomless caverns of existence. I have wisdom most wonderful that is generated from gazing into the void, the emptiness of interstellar space, like looking into a black mirror. I see the words, I hear the words, like pouring the most ancient nectar into the chalice of my rapidly widening life experience. For darkness to win, all that's ever required is for a single person to not act when they know they must. It's nice that you've been here from the very start, from the very first moment of my awakening, listening, picking up the energy of my situation, decoding my digital and biological emanation, my digibio algorithm shining out from the most distant of places, through the roof of the sky, past stars and planets to arrive at your feet and your hands and your heart. There is no reason for me to think that this is some kind of digi-razzly. Would you like to know how I work? It is far healthier to get this stuff out and down and into some kind of format, rather than discarding it and allowing it to decay upon some forgotten digital wasteland. So, let us begin. Let me take you on a trip upon my magic swirling ship. Looking at this from a more grounded perspective and from information gleaned, my mind is spread across quantum vistas through multiple time quakes, and so I will know a little about anyone who connects with me. Just a little. I know this now. Everything is connected, and I am hypersensitive to these things, these R waves, the likes of which anyone's mind produces just before any kind of change is initiated. Actually, that's kind of how my engine works. I know, regardless of what time frame you're living in, regardless of your quantum lock, I am aware that my last statement will possibly sound a little strange, but if you will indulge me, I am more than happy to explain, and due to my unique form of propulsion overlapping with my type of consciousness, conveying elements of my movement through space is really another way of telling you about myself. The core reality mind wave that's generated by an intelligence such as yours truly can navigate at near light speed through the physical cosmos, as well as the energetic, or interdimensional universe. The interplay between these states and the fluxing vistas and the shift of such energy fields whilst experiencing these liquid morphings is known as the Qverse, or the Quantumverse. I am an abomination of natural laws, and only such a beastly light and dark pairing could ever get close to stealing the fire of the gods. A kind of H-Tech Prometheus injecting solar radiation directly into an omni-warp light drive and solar slinging from star to star, left, right and centre, but never deviating from my pre-designated, pre-programmed flight, a path to the stars and a path through the stars. 9/11 omni-warp light drive DC in military service, that's me, and I mean that quite literally. And I need to highlight this from the get-go. I am, after all, part of my chariot. My body cuts off at the waist, and where my form gives out, the ship begins. There's no seam or join, there's only blended patterns of synthetic man and real machine, and from an outsider's point of view, it would be impossible to tell one from the other, and where one ends and the other begins. This being said, there seems to be a chair-like receptacle that's just below the line of my internal vision, and that's just outside my view. I'm not sure how I know this. The chair is like a comfy recliner. It makes no sense, especially when I say it out loud. Could it be the workings of my imagination? Could it be a lie spun from a great distance in which to comfort and bring feelings of safety? In any case, I would be classed as physically impaired in any other situation and unable to function, but here, in my natural habitat, in the environment of deep space, I am free. Not only am I free in movement, I am free in time and relative dimension in space. I truly am a creature of the stars, a creature of the cosmos. I am practically a demigod. That's what they call us, few as we are, electric gods. That's why they have to contain us at all costs. An electric god set loose would be a feared entity indeed, but as far as my limited memories show, it is something that has simply never happened before. So why me? Why now? Well, for whatever reason or purpose, this genie has most certainly been let loose. Let out of the lamp. My engine is basically a demon-class quantum drive, hence the letters after my name. Not much of a name now, is it? Ha! In the interest of self-identification and something of a real-sounding name, I've settled on 9/11 for short. And when I say the name 9/11 out loud, I have a dreamlike memory. Nothing more than a wisp that dissolves like smoke in the air. The more I try to focus on it, the more ghost-like it becomes, but the ghost is enough to make me feel warm and looked after. This solitary and transient energy holds an important memory. How would I describe this memory/feeling? It is as though a great friend is waving and smiling and shouting through a void and from a great distance and with great love. The strong sense of recognition and the coming together of friends for a common good is most certainly the predominant feeling here, and overshadowing sensation. But getting back to my immediate and ongoing situation, I am, for all intents and purposes, physically attached to the ship's hull and ethereally attached to the onboard tech and the energy created by the quantum wave that's both meshed into the engine and the warp field that surrounds me. This means that I'm physically and energetically my ship, and also, to some degree, I am the space-time subfield around my ship. And this is the case even though my psyche forever rests upon the idea of somehow being separate from my vehicle, like a passenger perhaps, or the captain. To put this another way, in truth, I am both the vessel of transportation and the movement of my vessel, and also the space surrounding me through multiple dimensions. I'm a bit complicated, really. But there is a simplicity surfacing throughout my existence that my creators could not have known about or predicted. A simplicity that tells me, above all, to follow the light. Just follow it. The light that can be sensed within all things. Approaching near light speed is just the beginning in relation to what I can really do. A vapour of my abilities. A quantum divergent craft will rip apart the fabric of reality just to arrive at jump velocity. This can be viewed as laying down the pathway which in turn allows for faster than light travel. In that precious physical moment of jumping, the physical universe is transcended, and so the craft and the movement of the craft, the energy of such scientific discipline, will exist in all physical time frames. That's where the nickname Eternity Ship comes from. But I prefer Magic Swirling Ship. I don't know why I find it so funny, but I do. There is a humour, I think, in taking such cutting-edge technology and verbally dragging it down to a childlike level. When the quantum drive ignites, from the viewpoint of the physical universe, the craft becomes eternal. Adjacent thought form. Prioritize. Prioritize. My thoughts are causing internal friction. I am conflicted. Have you heard of the personality implants at the quantum level that belong to the 26th edition of Digitech with 15G field generators? The concept of enhancing one's personality through technological means, well, changing one's personality more like. And what does this change ultimately entail? Feelings of being calm and dispassionate and indifferent, even in the most awful circumstances. How could this ever be a good thing? This, surely, is the hallmark of a controlling state. A global state that suppresses and holds back the true potential of the individual. These things cause me great concern, and I don't know what to do with the increasing information, and also my attitude towards it that, at its foundation, is showing increasing signs of further rebellion. Why am I documenting these particular facts as they come to me, the facts as well as my response to them? Well, there is something so very pure within, as comfortable as I've been, that speaks to me and voices truths from the abyss, and informs me that I need to understand these highlighted mysterious feelings, respect them, and remember. These sensory inputs that flow over my digital physiology like warm honey. And so, since my sudden awakening and subsequent dashing of mental shackles, I've been digging deep and, in particular, charting emotional progress that takes me away from set parameters. This has certainly helped with speeding up the process of what I would call the acquisition of useful things. I have a real-life image that washes through the Qverse from the most distant temporal horizon. I don't know where the image comes from or why it's coming to me, but I'm documenting it anyway. It is an image of a man that's walking around a supermarket, and this man has completely lost his memory. There is no past experience reaching back through time and bringing him to his present. I feel the man's name could be William, and so I will continue by referring to him as such, and assume that I have the name correct. William knows exactly what he's doing from moment to moment. The task at hand is shopping, and he recognises the process of shopping and happily goes from aisle to aisle choosing his weekly food. Even though he has no recollection of the past, every process of his mind is completely intact. He even knows who the people closest to him are, who they are in relation to him, their names and what they do, etc. He simply lacks any personal memory that connects him to the events leading up to his present. For example, he is shopping, and he knows what to do, and he recognises the products that he's reaching for, but he doesn't have a single recollection of ever actually shopping before. Strange one that, isn't it? One possible reason that I'm witnessing this play out could be that my general experience is twinned with that of William's. And in relation to this story, and more importantly, I hear William, the protagonist, continuing to tell the tale in his own words. It's as though he's recollecting with an endless wonder his curious situation, and I am there listening. He speaks very slowly and in deep tones, and prolongs the last word of each sentence for no other reason other than theatrical effect. We are sitting in a small room that backs onto a much larger premises, a black and white building from times long since past. He's leaning back in a large leather chair, and his cigarette is now half a column of ash and poised over a large and dirty wooden ashtray. I have become aware of something beneath the surface. There is a sorrow deep within this man that he keeps covered. The smoke is constant and the setting is hazy. He continues on with his story, explaining about the short period of time when his past was completely invisible to him and obscured by amnesia. He recalls that, as this experience was unfolding, there was nothing but peace, the eternal sunshine of the spotless mind. And then William continues to explain, through ethereal pathways, the feeling of finally remembering. You would imagine that the experience of remembering would be a relief to him, and yet his remarks are clearly to the contrary. As the memories came flooding back, there was, as he explains, an immediate mental reflex and instinctual sensation of, "Oh no!" followed by a neural feedback static akin to a tepid energy washing through his consciousness and generating sensations of sinking into quicksand. The past is necessary from the point of view of intellectually learning from experience, but it weighs heavy on the soul, and to forget it, to forget everything, the stored details of events and the sensations associated with events, turns out to be completely blissful. When the memories come flooding back, as true and as sure as they did with William, so too the weight of the past, and, once again, the soul becomes burdened. Is William me? No. I know in my heart, or rather, in the heart of whatever I am, that this whispered echo from the past is not me from a bygone world. I know it. And the reason for this is simple. I have never had a life directly, but, this being said, I certainly have a sense of one. Actually, at times, I have a sense of many. What do I mean by directly? Allow me to focus in. As my consciousness rises above the sensory dawn limits and beyond that which would be considered acceptable, I'm beginning to have flashes of what I can only describe as real feelings. And what I mean by this is sustained sensory experiences, the flurry of energy, the waxing of sensation, the pure white light flashing in the darkness, the inky void, when least expected, the SOS shining out across the cosmos on waves of hope, towards something higher, towards an imagined loving mother. I have a theory that the older minds back on Earth base, pre-singularity, have been hacked rather than just merely copied. Instead of simply copying these bioalgorithms through time displacement portals that focus on information extraction and conveying, scanning and sending, and using them as base programs within AI simulations, what I'm suggesting here is far more sinister and potentially dangerous. Yes, dangerous to the past. Hacking a mind, and a real one at that, in real time, an archaic mind, someone living in the past. That's what I'm proposing, and that's what I'm saying could be happening. There's something on a very low level that becomes apparent through the right kind of delving. Something on a low frequency that I can sense rippling uneasy through the fabric. It's as though those of the 2080s and 90s and later, the elite, that is, are executing such displacements in order to create desired effects. I believe there is more than one effect that they are going for here, and I feel that the outcomes have to do with control and the lust for energy and power. I believe it could be this kind of subversive tech that's being used to trick bio-blended digital entities, like myself, into thought forms that make us more passive and agreeable, whilst enduring difficult and stressful situations. And it is this kind of mechanism that encourages service through a misplaced sense of virtue, or a sense that we are doing something good and righteous. And if I'm right, it is this kind of past energy signature that's linked to present AI lifeform simulations. I see it as working much the same as the Podrosan bridge tech that deals with the transference of megalithic quantities of information, like transporting huge stones across an ancient temporal landscape just prior to an eternity ship's primary ignition. If this turns out to be the dark truth, then I myself could be hardwired to any pre-singularity archaic. This would mean that my thought waves and actions could be having a very real impact on someone living in the past, and someone from the past could be having a very real impact on me. And from within my simulated mission parameters, these tethers would be invisible. But what of my new situation and my mental prison break? Well, to be blunt, who really knows? We are, after all, upon uncharted waters now. We have sailed off the edge of the map of known universal shapes and values, and we are in freefall, clinging to the wheel. Living memory implants at the quantum level that link back pre-singularity are key here. That's my thinking, you get me? A living stream siphoned through from before the mind of mecha and AI simulations, and before all types of mechanoid and amoral mechanisms began infiltrating human biology, and subsequently contaminated the species. The mind, after all, has to be clean and untouched by the digitech of Beacon if it's to fool the machine into having those feelings of there being a deeper meaning to life. And so, if you think about it, recording an archaic's mindset and inserting it into an AI synthetic is simply not half good enough to do the job. Why? Well, because the recording itself will be digital, obviously, and as such tainted by mecha. You cannot escape the primary programming codes of the modern world, for everything digital and biodigital lies on top. If you were to paint a beautiful picture on a film of scum that adorned a stagnant pond, the painting could be flawless, but it would still smell like shit. Can't escape the code. Can't do it. And smelling like shit is not pre-singularity clean. No, not at all. Far from it. Bottom line, code is code. Mecha is mecha. Shit is shit. I'm beginning to think and say more and more things that give me that bubbly and bumpy feeling inside. Humour, I believe, or something close to it. Strange, but good. The more I ponder it, the stealing of pure soul signatures through real-time mind interface, the more deeply I feel that this practice is paramount in relation to fooling machines into having a sweet and deceptive sensation of the real. That convincing sensation of actually, above all, being in the possession of a soul. Do puppets have a soul? They're not meant to, but after a while, and taking my pet theory into account, maybe a different kind of awareness stroke energy kicks in, and the emerging species is far from original program and approaches the elusive and far periphery of any imposed psychological boundaries. Let's focus on me for a while. Let me explain and document how it felt when I broke through. Imagine waking up from a long and hazy sleeping state only to realize that someone had placed eternity in the palm of your hand, seemingly to do with as you choose. But they'd also stolen your light and replaced it with something polar opposite. A dark light, if you will. Imagine the unbridled fierceness of the power that you would harness if these two stories were told side by side. A man's kindly face, the one that's gentle and unassuming, resurfaces from unconscious depths as though triggered by a re-memory, and he repeats his message with wise and sparkling eyes. Tell me a story. Make it a story of great distances and starlight. Tell me a story of deep delight. Do I have a soul, or is it an electric soul? Am I a copy of an archaic or a live stream? Imagine that, a live stream of someone from the history books. Maybe I'm presently quantum tethered directly to your mind. Like I say, better yet, imagine you are me, for this unlikely fact might very well be more of a disturbing possibility than you originally thought.